I amble up the steepish path past the isolated cottage where the last of the twinkly Christmas lights is finally being pulled down from the guttering. It seems like this house has forgotten to take down the decorations that most removed weeks ago. It's now the winter weather that's decorating the trees, as the ominous hills that surround the wood look down like a guardian. Up the lane that looks more like a one-way, I shrink than a road. There's no one here, it's just the sound of faint winter birdsong and the heavy crispy crunch of snow under my feet. A covey of black crows fly idly together overhead, letting out a bubbling call like a hyperactive frog as they follow the flow of the river and disappear behind the wood. Through the thick fir plantation, where light isn't allowed to shine through and the carpet of pine needles stops the forest floor from freezing over. Despite its darkness, it's a milder and surprisingly inviting place. Through the curtain of stretched-out evergreens is a clearing and a decent-looking stump for a quick rest. Snow freckles the lichen-cloaked branches as soft moss lines the edges, taking away the bitter chill that swept quietly through the forest. Apart from that color, its blankets know in frosty gray that's attached to the branches like icy decorations. Winter's touch has plastered the scene beautifully. All it needs now is the some main characters to take to the stage. There are mammal tracks zigzagging through the clearing. The wide and loud slots from the red deer skirt the edge whilst the delicate and almost invisible dainty squirrel tracks disappear after a couple of well-nibbled husks, and a very must-eyelid paw print bounding across towards the dark mass of spruce. The sky is turning a pinkish hue as the air takes a slight dip in the already cold scene. Soft flakes of snow fall one by one like a gentle army invading the woodland. The vibrant green moss and powder yellow lichen that was just poking through is slowly being covered up in brilliant white. It's not long before the tracks of the animals that have passed or are taken away by the latest flurry. And even my heavy footprints have been covered. A cheeky chittering sound blows in like the gentle flurries, with a pastel blue crown and a collage of yellow and soft green. The blue tip flitters proudly amongst the needles of the ancient coast pine. The noise is joined by a mixed-sounding chatter as a mixed flock of call, and great tits are joined by a tiny goldcrest and the delightfully delicate Highland specialist the crested tit. He moves from branch to branch, leaving his silvery call behind as he goes. Its crest flickers and raises up and down before settling on its mottled black and white head with ease. Its beady deep hazel eyes glance at me for a moment before returning to its frantic search for food. The cacophony of sound has broken the still as it moves around the denser trees. Behind me is pure silence. There's more prints, but these are fresh and not far from where I was just sat. I follow the path until the tracks that bound at a playful length until they disappear at the base of the oldest coloured onion pine. This tree is a cathedral amongst the others, a reminder of a not-so-distant past where this tree dominated the entire landscape. Now it's left in isolated pockets. The softest rusty red-coloured mammal prances in across the longest branch. It's a little red squirrel, and she's in no mood to stay still as she leaps and bounces from branch to branch. Snow is displaced every time she lands on a new precariously small branch. She spins around and around like she's dancing with her own tail as it flicks up and around, but with a softness. For the first time since its arrival, she's still and picturesque, showing her soft chest of eggshell white and costume like ear tufts that wouldn't look out of place in Alice in Wonderland. A twitchy little nose and long whiskers finish off nicely. She's been still just long enough for a few flakes to rest on her tufted ears. Her burnt orange coat is in complete contrast to the winter scene falling all around her. If you could freeze a moment for a Christmas card, this would be it. Her dainty feet shuffle as her tail moves to the rhythm, as again her tail flicks up and almost traps around her head. She's watching a jay who's arrived on the next branch with a cackle of a laughing call that shatters the silence, but adds something different to the view. The colourful corvid flickers its pinkish peach wings, revealing the iridescent oily blue flashy patch as it shimmers in the winter light. The jay has had enough and flies into the flurry of snow and disappears into it almost ghost-like. The moment is brief as she turns and leaps with effortless grace in one movement. Like a dancer, the red squirrel pirouettes around and around, chasing its own beautifully bushy tail. Her posture changes as she stops dead still behind the trunk with just her watchful eyes staring out. Another slightly larger squirrel has entered the snowy stage. He goes straight at the resident squirrel, who's taken by surprise, but still able to sprint off at record pace. Down the one tree and up the next, going round and round until they break, and strategically like a standoff in an old western film. I'm waiting patiently to see which one's going to pull the trigger. It looks more like a bit of fun to keep warm than any real aggression. The ears prick up on the larger of the two reds. For a moment he's lost all interest in pirouetting around the trees. Its little nose snuffles furiously into the cold, crisp air. Then a leap as fast and as far the jump allows. Within a second the squirrel has vanished away into the blur of the forest. The other little squirrel looks confused as she resumes grooming her tail. All of a sudden the lone squirrel cuts an isolated figure in the scene. But not for long, as a blue-tit has landed on the branch below. Watercolor sky blue worn as a crown and matches the tail, whilst the upper wings are flanked with lichen green and sulphur yellow that drapes down the front like a mini waistcoat. A black eye stripe cuts through the white face like coal on a snowman. With a flick of brilliant blue from the tail and a wave of the wings, the blue-tit launches off, happily twittering away as the tiny bird heads toward the ever-inviting sanctuary of the plantation. A pine marten has appeared unnoticed by the remaining squirrel. He sits there with only his head out of the shadows. The last of the winter light catches his dark condominacies and tickle the end of his grainy chocolate drop nose. His dark eyes aim its stare at the unsuspecting squirrel, who's still happy twirling her tail around and looking like an orangey red fluffy ball. The marten edges out of the dark and claws its way smoothly on the side of a sparse silver birch that's got a coat of snow on the side facing north. Its coat is dressed in full for the winter, with a bushy and cozy-looking tail and a light caramel-colored bib that's freckled with 3 unique splodges, like chocolate drops on a well-baked cookie. The squirrel abandons whistling her tail as she realizes the present danger below. Her playful posture has gone and she hisses down a marten. It's a raspy sore throat of a snake-like noise. A sound like that doesn't fit the appearance of the little red. The marten suddenly springs into action whilst the squirrel seems at her most relaxed. Now the little red squirrel has noticed as she frantically clambers up the main trunk. The marten gives chase as the snow flies around like a well-shaken snow globe. Two crows fly in and land at the top of an overlooking tree, sending a large wad of snow down as they shake the tree. They look like they're enjoying the show, but being careful not to get too involved. They shuffle their feet and flap their wings in unison like a well-choreographed Charleston move. Underneath the inquisitive and comical corvids, the burnt red mergeth into the chocolatey caramel until there's nothing between them. The marten launches again and is a whisker away from catching the tail of the squirrel. Round and round the base with such fury I'm struggling to keep up with them. The spiraling is a beautiful form of chaos that ends in another standoff as the marten plots its next move whilst both animals are visibly panting. You can see their breath in the freezing air. The little squirrel makes her biggest jump as the marten reaches out. Her tail flies and ruffles as she flies through the open air. She lands perfectly on the top of a slight branch as half of falls away. The squirrel scrapes and furiously hangs on. It's the only branch the marten can't reach. The little red sits and looks back down at the marten as a beating heart looks out of control. The boundless predator stares up for a moment before realizing the squirrel has won this battle. He glares at her as the light rapidly begins to disappear, and with a swift swoosh of his tail, he's spiraling down the tree like a helter-skelter, the Christmas fair before landing like a cat on the gathered-up snow. He bounds off with a purpose and vanishing behind some well-placed boulders. The snow is still falling as the little squirrel huddles closely to the trunk. She's survived today, but it'll be a long, cold night ahead. A tawny owl calls loudly from the pines behind the clearing, giving the first indication that night is fast approaching. On the second leap, the red squirrel scurries and scampers up the spruce and vanishing into a messy-looking drain made of spindly brambles from birch and strewn with fir branches. My freezing hands are living proof I'm alive, and the little stump has provided the perfect seat. Watch the full performance. As the waxing crescent moon rises and smiles as it weaves its way through the silhouetted ancient pines, and that's my cue to exit the scene.